There's a reason why the elites want us emotional, distracted, confused, and constantly reacting to the next thing on our news feed. Not the elite as some abstract concept we can roll our eyes at, but the specific people who benefit from us never figuring out what we are. Because the moment we start thinking clearly, actually thinking, not just reacting, their entire game falls apart. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why a single person who can think for themselves is the most dangerous thing in the world to people whose power depends on keeping us confused. Look at what they did to us. They took our power, our actual power, the thing that makes us, us, and they put it outside of us, on a God we have to beg to, on celebrities we watch and study and imitate, thinking if we just get close enough to them, something will rub off, on experts we have to trust because we couldn't possibly understand what they understand, on products that promise to make us more like the people we worship. We spend our whole lives trying to get closer to something out there, watching them, studying them, buying their stuff, following their advice, adopting their opinions, thinking it'll bring us closer to what we picture as God, what we picture as success, what we picture as meaning, not realizing that what we're looking for is us. It was always us. They took our power and made us chase it in places it was never going to be. And while we're chasing, we're not thinking, we're not questioning, we're not looking at the one place the answer actually is. That's the system at work. But why would we be put here to be slaves? Think about it. Every major system tells us the same thing in different words. They tell us to submit, to bow down, and dissolve yourself. They tell us to obey, sacrifice, and wait for your reward after you're dead. Religion says submit to God. Science says submit to the experts. Politics says submit to your team. New Age says submit to the universe. Dissolve your ego. Become one with everything. They may say different words, but it's all the same instructions. They tell us we are small and something else is big. Our job is to serve. But why? If we were really meant to be slaves, why would we have the capacity to question it? Why would we be able to imagine freedom? Why would submission feel wrong? We eventually figured out that physical slavery is evil. That was a breakthrough. We recognized that owning another person's body is wrong. But somehow, we still accept mental slavery and economic slavery. We act like those are different, like those are just how things are. They're not different. Slavery is slavery. And the fact that we can see this, that we can think about this, proves we weren't meant for chains. That's the first clue about what we actually are. And that's exactly what they don't want us to find. Ask what we are, and they give us options. But all of them are wrong and designed to keep us passive. Science says we're atoms, biological machines that accidentally became aware, neurons firing, chemistry doing what chemistry does, robots made of meat that got lucky enough to ask questions before dissolving back into nothing. And if we're just physics, just machines following rules, then we don't really have choices. We don't really have freedom. We're just executing programs written by our genes and our environment. The experience of choosing is an illusion. They say we are just puppets who can't see the strings. That's what they're teaching in universities. That's the scientific view. That's what smart people are supposed to believe. Mainstream religion gives us a different answer but the same conclusion. We're souls, but fallen ones, broken from the start, sinful by nature. We need salvation from outside ourselves because we can't fix what's wrong with us. Obey the rules, believe the right things, submit to the authority of the church, the book, the priest, and maybe we'll be rewarded after we're dead. But while we're alive, we need to repent and feel guilty for being what we are. Don't trust yourself. You're corrupted. Trust us instead. The New Age says we're energy or consciousness or the universe experiencing itself. Beautiful, vague words, words that sound profound, but try to actually do anything with them. Dissolve your ego, silence your thoughts, become one with everything. Stop being a separate self and merge into the cosmic soup. Again, don't trust yourself. Don't think too hard. Don't maintain your individuality. Just let go. Notice what every single option has in common. They keep us passive, dependent, looking outside ourselves for answers. Science says trust the experts. Religion says trust the priests. New Age says trust the universe. None of them say think for yourself. Look at what they built these systems on. Take religious texts, for example. They are the most influential books in human history and taken as absolute truth by billions of people. There have literally been wars fought over them and billions of lives lived according to them. Entire civilizations shaped by them. Now examine them with the same standard we'd apply to literally anything else. What's in them? A bunch of stories, claims, rules, threats, and promises. What's not in them? Math, science, any mechanism we can independently verify. If we want to know if a bridge will hold weight, what do? We do math, we test materials, we calculate loads, and we can prove it works before anyone walks on it. We want to know if an airplane will fly, there's math, equations, tests, and proof. But we want to know the nature of reality and our place in it. Here's a book of stories. Just believe it. Don't ask how we know. Don't ask for proof. Just have faith. And what do we actually know is in these books? Well, we know there are errors, contradictions, and historical inaccuracies. Things we can verify are wrong. So to be clear, there is no evidence these books are true, but there is evidence they contain errors. And we're supposed to take this as the word of God, build our entire lives on it, and never question it. And if we do question it, we're the problem. We lack faith. We're arrogant. We're going to hell. They made questioning itself shameful, so we never look clearly at the obvious. Most of us are fake questioners. We think we question everything. We really believe we're critical thinkers. I don't just accept things, I question. But watch what we actually do. We question within our paradigm, never the paradigm itself. A Christian questions Islam, questions atheism, and questions Buddhism. But Christianity itself is not up for debate. That's truth. Everything else gets scrutinized against it. A scientist questions religion, spirituality, and anything unscientific. But materialism itself, the assumption that only physical stuff is real, that's not a belief. That's just how things are. It never gets examined. A liberal questions conservatives. A conservative questions liberals. Neither one questions whether the whole framework is a puppet show designed to keep them fighting each other instead of looking up at who's pulling the strings. A New Ager questions the system and mainstream thinking, but their own mystical assumptions, those are awakened. Those are beyond question. Everyone thinks they question everything. Almost no one actually does. Real questioning means turning the lens on our own beliefs, the ones we're most certain about, the ones that feel like facts rather than opinions. Asking, what if this is the fraud? What if the thing I've built my identity on is the thing that's trapping me? Almost nobody does this because it's terrifying, because our beliefs aren't just ideas anymore. They've become who we are. We don't have beliefs. We are our beliefs. Attack the belief, attack the person. And that's exactly how they designed it. Even meditation suffers from this. Meditation is everywhere now. It's all over the mainstream. Doctors recommend it. Schools teach it. Apps sell it. And corporations offer it to employees. It's presented as the answer to stress, anxiety, unhappiness, the path to peace, maybe even enlightenment. And what does it actually teach? Silence your thoughts. Quiet the mind. Stop thinking. That's the instruction. The practice is to learn to not think. Now, I'm not saying there's zero value in calming down, but notice the pattern. Religion says, don't question, have faith, School says, don't think independently, memorize what we tell you. Science says, don't trust your experience, trust our measurements. New Age says, don't think, meditate. Silence is enlightenment. Everything points in the same direction. Every major system, whether it looks spiritual or scientific or educational or political, they all converge on the same instruction: stop thinking. Ask yourself who benefits from a population trained not to think. Ask yourself why every path they offer leads to the same destination: a quiet mind that doesn't ask hard questions. Ask yourself why, out of all the things they could teach, silence your thoughts is the one that made it into the mainstream. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe there's nothing to see here. Or maybe there's a reason they fear what happens when we actually use our minds. Why is everything designed to point us away from our own thinking? Why does every system, religious, scientific, educational, spiritual, converge on the same message? Don't trust yourself. Look outside. Submit to something else. Why would they work so hard to keep us from clear, sustained, independent thought? What are they afraid we'll find if we actually look? That's not a rhetorical question. There's an answer. And the answer is what they've been hiding from us our entire lives. They're afraid we'll find out what we actually are. Because what we actually are can't be controlled. One question you should ponder is this: are we machines? Science says yes. They say we're just neurons firing, atoms following rules, and biological computers running on chemistry. Everything we think, everything we feel, everything we experience, it's all just physics. Particles bouncing around according to laws. Our sense of choosing is an illusion. We're not really deciding anything. We're executing programs written by our DNA and our environment. That's the mainstream view. But is it true? Well, let's use actual machines to see if that's what we are. Right now, everyone's talking about artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever comes next. These systems can do incredible things. They process more information in a second than any of us will in a lifetime. They can write essays, pass medical exams, write code, and beat humans at games we thought required creativity. They can hold conversations that feel human. They can write poetry. They can explain quantum physics and then write a recipe for dinner. They can pass the bar exam. They can diagnose diseases better than most doctors. By every measure we used to use for intelligence, they're intelligent. If we're just biological computers like science claims, then a better computer should be able to do everything we do, right? Same principle: better hardware, more processing power, faster connections, bigger memory. The machines have all of that. They have more than that. So why isn't AI conscious? If consciousness is just computation, just information processing, then these systems should be conscious. They process more information faster than any human brain. They're connected to more data than any human could access in 1,000 lifetimes, but they're not conscious. Everyone knows it. Even the people building them know it. ChatGPT doesn't experience anything. It doesn't know it exists. It's not in there the way we're in there right now. When we read words, something is happening inside. There's an experience, a feeling of understanding, the redness of red, the pain of pain. Something it feels like to be alive right now, reading a book, thinking about it. AI has none of that. It simulates conversation. It predicts the next word based on statistical patterns. It's very good at pattern matching, but there's nobody home, no inner experience or feeling of being, just processing. The materialists can't explain this. By their own logic, consciousness should emerge from sufficient computation. We have sufficient computation now, way more than sufficient, and nothing emerged. They'll say, we just need more processing power, or we need a different architecture. But that's trust us. We'll figure it out eventually. They've had decades, billions of dollars, the most powerful computers ever built, and they haven't produced a single spark of genuine awareness. Maybe it's because their entire model is wrong. Maybe we're not machines, and the answer to why reveals what we actually are. But before we get to that, Imagine we're building a perfect lie detector, not the crappy ones that measure sweat and heart rate, a perfect one. It can analyze any statement and determine if it's true or false, complete accuracy, no exceptions. We program it, we test it, it works on everything. Then we hand it a card with 6 words. This statement is false. If the machine says true, the statement is true, then it's true that the statement is false. That's a contradiction. If the machine says false, the statement is false, then it's false that the statement is false, which means it's true. Another contradiction. The machine breaks. In 1931, a mathematician named Kurt Gödel proved something devastating, but not what most people think he proved. Gödel performed an incredible technical feat. He found a way to make arithmetic reference itself, but nobody thought to ask, should arithmetic do that? Arithmetic doesn't talk about itself. 1 plus 1 equals 2 doesn't assert its own truth. It just is true. It doesn't need to say so. Could we ever expect 1 plus 1 equals 3 to show up inside arithmetic? Of course not. That statement is simply invalid. It doesn't belong to the system. So what happens when we force arithmetic into self-referential territory, the territory of human language with all its ambiguities and contradictions? We get a mess. And instead of questioning whether the experiment was valid, whether the whole project was misconceived from the start, the establishment blamed mathematics itself. What Gödel showed was that every formal system humans can build, every set of axioms, rules, and procedures we construct to try to capture arithmetic will either be incomplete or inconsistent. Every machine, every computer, every algorithm, if it's built on human-made rules, it hits this wall, and the establishment took this and ran with it. They told the world, see, mathematics itself is broken. Even math is incomplete. That became the official story that was taught in every university and repeated in every textbook. But Gödel himself didn't believe that for a second. Gödel was a Platonist. He believed mathematics is real. He believed math is complete, consistent, perfect, and eternal. What he believed he proved wasn't that math is broken. He proved that human systems for capturing math are broken. Our formal systems, axioms, and mechanical methods are incomplete. Reality doesn't need to prove itself. 1 plus 1 equals 2 was true before humans existed. It'll be true after we're gone. It doesn't assert its own truth. It just is true. It's enacted automatically. Reality is a truth system. It performs the truth of its own mathematics at every moment. It has no mechanism for falsehood. Humans, on the other hand, need proof systems. That's because human systems are imperfect. We build axioms, construct arguments, try to prove things, and those constructions are what Gödel showed will always fall short. The establishment took Gödel's proof that our proof systems are limited and flipped it into the truth system itself is flawed. They took evidence of human limitation and projected it onto reality. Because if math is reality, if the universe runs on perfect, complete mathematics that doesn't need our proofs to be true, then their materialist worldview is finished. And this is exactly why AI will never be conscious, not because math is broken, but because machines are formal systems. The very things Gödel proved are limited. Every AI ever built or that ever could be built runs on human-made axioms, rules, algorithms. It's trapped inside exactly the kind of system Gödel showed can never fully know itself. The wall isn't in mathematics. The wall is in the machine. And yet here we are, self-aware, right now, doing something no formal system can do. Thinking about our own thinking. Being uncertain about our own uncertainty. Questioning our own questions. Every moment of every day. Without breaking. If we were what the materialists claim, biological computers, atoms following rules, meat machines, we'd be formal systems. We'd be bound by Gödel. We'd hit the wall, but we don't, which means we're not formal systems. We're something else entirely. something that operates from the same complete, consistent mathematics that is reality, not a system that uses math. Something made of math, the real math, the math Gödel himself believed in, perfect, whole, eternal, the truth system itself, not a proof system trying to approximate it. That's the difference between us and every machine that will ever exist. Having the ability to think about ourselves makes us different from any machine ever built or that ever could be built. Not just processing data about ourselves, actually thinking about our own thoughts, questioning our own beliefs, and being uncertain about our own uncertainty. Right now, any of us can ask, am I lying to myself? And actually mean it, actually not know the answer, actually investigate. We can be surprised by our own thoughts. We can change our minds and not fully understand why. We can hold contradictions without breaking. That's real self-reference, not a simulation of it. And according to Gödel, that's impossible for any formal system, any machine, any rule-based structure. If we were just atoms following rules, if we were biological computers running on chemistry, we couldn't do this. We'd be the lie detector. We'd break, but we don't break. We do it constantly. Every time we question ourselves, we demonstrate something no machine can do. AI can simulate self-analysis. It follows if-then rules about examining itself, but it doesn't experience the paradox. It doesn't sit in genuine uncertainty. It's not actually in there wondering. We are? That's not a small difference. That's everything. Why does any of this matter? Well, if we were machines, formal systems following rules, every outcome would be predetermined. Plug in the starting conditions and you can calculate everything that will ever happen. No room for genuine choice, just dominoes falling. That's what it would mean to be biological computers. Every decision, just physics playing out. The experience of choosing, an illusion. But Gödel proved that formal systems, machines, algorithms, rule-based structures can never fully capture reality. They always fall short. They always miss something, which means reality itself is bigger than any machine model of it, richer, more complete. And we are part of that bigger reality, not trapped inside a formal system looking out. We're expressions of the complete mathematics that no machine can contain. That's where freedom lives, not in the gaps of some broken system, in the fullness of what we actually are. When we act against our own patterns, when we surprise ourselves, when we change our minds for reasons we can't fully articulate, when we do something that doesn't make sense for who we've been. That's not a glitch. That's genuine agency, something operating from a deeper level than any formal rule set. We have something no machine can ever have, real choice, not because reality is broken, because reality is complete, and we're part of that completeness. The materialists can't explain this. Science ignores it because it breaks their model, and that's what they don't want us to know. Now let's go a little deep, shall we? Where are our thoughts? Point to where the idea of justice is located. Weigh the understanding of love. Measure the sense of meaning. Cut open a brain and find truth. We can't, because thoughts aren't physical objects. They don't have mass, location, or any physical properties at all. We can find neurons firing, and we can measure brain activity, but we'll never find the thought itself, because thoughts don't exist in physical space. Try to find a thought in physical reality. You can't. So where are they? If thoughts don't exist in physical space, they're not bound by the rules of physical space. Our minds, the actual experience of being us, aren't inside the machine. They're not produced by the brain like a factory produces products. We're not bodies that have minds. We're minds that experience having bodies. That's a complete inversion of what they told us, and it changes everything about what we are. So what is thinking? What are we actually doing when we reason? Here's what they don't want us to understand. When we think clearly, when we actually reason through something, we're not making things up. We're not inventing. We're discovering. We're moving through a territory that exists whether we explore it or not. 2 plus 2 equaled 4 before humans existed. It'll equal 4 after we're gone. It equals 4 whether anyone believes it or not. We don't invent mathematical truth. We find it. It's there, waiting to be accessed. When we reason clearly, we're accessing something eternal, something that doesn't depend on us, something that was true before we were born and will be true after we die. But what is the thing that's accessing eternal truth? It's not our bodies. Bodies don't do math. Atoms don't understand logic. It's something else, something that can touch the eternal. That's us, the real us. Now here's where it gets rather strange and where we find out what we actually are. What happens when we use thinking to examine thinking itself? When consciousness becomes conscious of consciousness, we're doing it right now, using our minds to think about what mind is, using reason to understand reason, follow the loop all the way through. The tool and the thing being examined are the same. We're not separate from the thing we're investigating. We are the thing we're investigating. Think about what that means. Not in the abstract, right now, the thing reading these words, the thing processing this idea, the thing that just thought, what does he mean? That thing is also the thing being described. It's not watching from outside. It is the inside. And when we follow this all the way, we discover something. We're not people who use reason. We are reason, waking up, becoming aware of itself through us. Every time we think clearly, genuinely think without distortion, we're not just solving problems. We're participating in something eternal. Reason isn't just a tool we have, it's what we are. Mathematical truth recognizing itself. Eternal logic becoming conscious. That sounds abstract until we realize what it means. We're not biological accidents. We're not random arrangements of atoms that got lucky. We're not meaningless flickers in an uncaring universe. We're something eternal waking up. We're made of the same stuff that makes 2 plus 2 equals 4. The same complete, perfect mathematical structure that underlies all of reality. We have genuine freedom because we're not machines, not formal systems bound by Gödel's limits. We're expressions of complete mathematics that no formal system can fully capture. The real math, the living math, the math that is reality. We access eternal truth because our minds aren't bound by physical space. We are reason because that's what consciousness is. The universe becoming aware of itself through logic. And now we understand why they fear us. Someone who knows this can't be controlled. We don't need priests to tell us what's true. We can reason our way there. We don't need experts to interpret reality for us. We can access it directly. We don't need systems to give our lives meaning. We are meaning. We are the thing that makes sense of things. A person who knows what they are doesn't beg, submit, wait for permission. They think. And there's nothing more dangerous to people whose power depends on us not thinking. That's why they built every system to point us away from our own minds. That's why they made questioning shameful and faith virtuous. That's why they teach us to silence our thoughts instead of sharpen them. They're not afraid of what we might do. They're afraid of what we might realize, that we never needed them, that the power was inside the whole time, that a single person who can think clearly is more dangerous than an army that can't. And that person is us. So they had to build systems, not to kill us. That's messy, expensive, and you can only do it once. But to capture our minds, to make us police ourselves, to install programs so deep we'd defend them like our lives depended on it. They had to make us afraid of our own thoughts. And it worked. They don't just give us beliefs. They make beliefs our identity. Think about how this works. We're born. Before we can think, before we can question, before we have any defense at all, they start installing. This is what's true. This is who you are. This is your family's faith, your culture's values, your country's story. By the time we can think, it's too late. The beliefs aren't beliefs anymore. They're us. Our religion isn't something we believe. It's who we are. Our politics isn't an opinion, it's our identity. Our worldview isn't a lens we're using, it's our self. Now, questioning isn't examining ideas, it's threatening our existence. Changing our minds isn't updating beliefs, it's killing who we are. That's why people react so violently when you challenge their deepest beliefs. You're not attacking an idea, you're attacking them, their sense of self, their reason for existing. We didn't choose this. It was done to us before we could resist. And that's the trap. Once beliefs become identity, they become self-defending. You don't need guards when the prisoners guard themselves. They got us before we could think. And now thinking feels like dying. That's the most sophisticated prison ever built. Here's how it works in real time. Someone criticizes your political party. You feel defensiveness because you feel you have to protect yourself. Your nervous system interpreted an attack on your beliefs as an attack on your body because it is your body now. The belief has been integrated so deeply that your identity and the idea have fused. There's no space between what I think and what I am. That's not natural. Babies aren't born Republican or Democrat. Children don't come into the world Christian or Muslim. These identities were installed, layer by layer, year by year, until we couldn't tell where we ended and the programming began. And the installation process was invisible. We didn't feel it happening. We don't remember choosing these beliefs. They feel like they've always been there, like they're just true, obviously true. So obviously true that questioning them feels insane. That's how we know the programming worked. The beliefs that control us most are the ones we've never examined, the ones we defend with our lives without being able to explain why, the ones that feel like reality itself rather than interpretations of reality. Those are the bars of our cage, and we've been trained to love them, to protect them, to attack anyone who threatens them. The perfect prison, where the inmate, the guard, and the architect all at once, and we don't even know we're locked up. Now let's look at every major system in society, not as conspiracy theorists, but as pattern recognizers. Just observe what they do, not what they say they do. What actually happens when people go through them. Religion says, don't question, have faith. Doubt is weakness. Doubt is sin. The answers already exist. They're in the book, from the prophet through the priest. Our job isn't to think. Our job is to believe. And what happens to people who believe without thinking? They're controllable. Point them at an enemy and they'll march. Tell them to hate and they'll hate. Tell them to die and they'll die, all without ever asking why. The current education system is all about memorization, regurgitation, and passing the tests, not understanding, questioning, or thinking independently. Memorize what we tell you, repeat it back, get the grade, move on. Think about what school actually trained us to do. Sit still for hours, don't speak unless called on. Ask permission to use the bathroom. Move when the bell rings. Stop what you're doing when the bell rings again. Repeat for 12 years. That's obedience training. The content almost doesn't matter. What matters is the structure, the implicit lessons. Authority figures have the answers. Our job is to receive them. Resistance is punished. Compliance is rewarded. The best students are the ones who absorb without questioning, who accept the curriculum as truth, who never ask, why do I need to know this? Or, is this actually correct? Who can sit still the longest? Who caused the least disruption? We call them smart. We reward them and we promote them. What we're actually selecting for is compliance. And the kids who couldn't sit still, who asked too many questions, who challenged the teacher, who refused to memorize things that didn't make sense to them. We drugged them, labeled them, told them something was wrong with their brains. Maybe nothing was wrong with their brains. Maybe something was right with their brains. Maybe they were the ones who couldn't be programmed, and the system couldn't tolerate that. Media is all about fear, reacting, and picking a side. If it bleeds, it leads. Everything is urgent. Everything is outrage. Everything requires our immediate emotional response. There's no time to think. That's the point. By the time we could think about the last thing, Here's the next thing, and the next, and the next. Our attention is fragmented into pieces too small to form a coherent thought. We're always reacting, never reflecting, always consuming, never processing. The news doesn't inform us, it performs for us. Thinking people change the channel, or never turn on the TV in the first place. Emotional people stay and watch. Guess which one makes the money? Entertainment is the escape valve. Reality is boring. Reality is hard. Come live in our stories, our games, our feeds, our content. We'll give you heroes to admire, villains to hate, drama to feel, all without you having to do anything. Just watch, just scroll, just consume. And while we're consuming their stories, we're not thinking about our own. While we're living vicariously through characters, we're not living at all. Entertainment isn't neutral, it's a pressure valve. It lets people feel without acting, experience without risking, live without living, safe, controlled, managed. Politics is all about picking a team and hating the other team, red versus blue, left versus right, us versus them. Don't think about whether the game itself is rigged. Don't notice that both teams work for the same owners. Don't ask why nothing ever really changes no matter who wins. Just fight, stay angry, stay divided, stay focused on each other instead of looking up. Politics isn't about solving problems. It's about managing conflict, keeping people busy fighting over the steering wheel so they never notice who built the car. And then there's consumerism, want, buy, want more, buy more, feel empty, here's a product, feel ugly, here's a product, feel meaningless, here's a product. The hole inside us was manufactured, so was the thing they're selling to fill it. First, they show us images of perfection we can never achieve, models who don't look like that in real life, lifestyles that don't exist, happiness that comes from owning things. Then they let us feel the gap, the distance between what we are and what we're supposed to be. That feeling, that's not natural. That's not human nature. That's installed, deliberately, by people who profit from our dissatisfaction. Then they sell us the solution, the product that will close the gap. And it never works. That's the point. If it worked, we'd stop buying. If one purchase actually made us whole, we'd never need another one. The business model requires our perpetual emptiness. The phone gets slow, the fashion gets dated, the car gets old, and we need the new one, forever. They've turned us into consumption machines, and the emptier we feel, the faster we buy. We're not broken, we're engineered to feel exactly empty enough to keep shopping, and never full enough to stop. But here's what the elite really don't want us to know. They aren't geniuses. Look at them. Not at the PR image, not at the mythology, at the actual people making decisions. They're not the best and brightest. They didn't rise through exceptional ability. They didn't outthink the competition. Many inherited their position, knew the right people, went to the right schools, which are just networking clubs for the already wealthy, got the right introductions, married into the right families. Their mediocrities, promoted beyond their competence, given authority without earning it, educated beyond their intelligence, which means they're neither educated nor intelligent. They need the game rigged because they couldn't win a fair one. Right now, who you know matters vastly more than what you know. Networking beats merit. Connections beat talent. Birth beats brilliance. It's a system designed by mediocrities to protect mediocrities. In a real meritocracy, where position is earned through actual ability, most of the people currently in power would be nobody. Their only real skill is being born into the right family or knowing the right people. That's why they've built a world where rational thinking is discouraged, where asking too many questions makes you difficult, where the game is rigged before you start playing. They're not evil geniuses. They're terrified mediocrities who got lucky and will do anything to stop people with actual ability from exposing them. Here's the irony that should make us laugh or cry. The people making the rules are the crazy ones. They believe in invisible beings that control the universe and answer prayers. They believe dead matter magically produces consciousness for no reason. They believe infinite economic growth is possible on a finite planet. They believe money printed from nothing has real value. They believe they're qualified to run things because their grandfather was rich, and they call us crazy for questioning. The lunatics are running the asylum. They just convinced everyone that sanity is the disease. Normal means accepting the world as they've defined it. Crazy means seeing through the definitions. They've made it so that the craziest thing we can do is think clearly, and the sanest thing we can do is accept the madness. Only reason can free us. Faith, feelings, mysticism, they plunge us back into madness. They hand the keys back to the lunatics. The whole world is run on a bluff. Power isn't held by force. There aren't enough guards to control everyone, and there aren't enough bullets to stop a population that decides not to comply. Power is held by convincing us that we're powerless, making us believe we're small, limited, and in need of management, making us believe we can't figure things out without them, that we're not qualified, not educated enough, not connected enough, not allowed, making us believe the rules are real, that the system is inevitable, that there's no alternative. That's the bluff. And the moment we see it, it loses its power. Every system of control depends on us not knowing what we are. The moment we know, really know, the bluff collapses. That's what they fear, not what we might do, what we might realize, that the whole thing is a magic trick, and magic tricks only work when you don't see how they're done. So what do we do with this? We see the trap. We understand what we are. We know why they fear us. Now what? Before we can change anything outside, something has to change inside. We have to claim our own minds. That sounds simple. It's not. We've been trained since birth to outsource our thinking, check with authorities, doubt our own conclusions, seek approval before trusting ourselves. Every time we had an original thought, someone was there to correct it. Every time we questioned, someone told us to accept. Every time we trusted ourselves, someone reminded us that we're not qualified. That training is deep. It doesn't just disappear because we watched a video. Taking back our own reason is the first act of revolution, the only one that matters. Everything else flows from it. It means I will think for myself. I will follow logic where it leads, even when it's uncomfortable. I will not accept claims just because authorities make them. I will question even the things I'm most certain about, especially those. I will trust my own mind more than I trust their systems. This is terrifying to them, not because of what we'll do, because of what we'll stop doing. We'll stop believing without evidence, stop obeying without reason, stop consuming without questioning, stop fighting their wars against each other. We'll stop being managed. And there's no system that can survive a population that refuses to be managed. Smart people could run the world. The ability to think clearly, plan long term, see through manipulation. These are superpowers in a world of confusion. But historically, smart people have served power instead of taking it. They've been the advisors, the technicians, the experts, the consultants, always working for irrational rulers, never ruling themselves. The people who can actually think have always had low will to power. They'd rather be right than be in charge. They'd rather solve problems than wield authority. They serve instead of lead, and the world suffers for it. Look who's in charge: the ruthless, the connected, the born lucky, the shameless, the ones willing to do anything for power except deserve it. Meanwhile, the people who could actually run things are writing reports for them, building their systems, making their plans work, serving. Part of it is values. Rational people tend to value truth over power. Part of it is disposition. The life of the mind is genuinely satisfying. Why deal with the messiness of power when you could be solving interesting problems? Part of it is trained helplessness. Smart people are told from childhood that they're not practical, that being intellectual means being disconnected from reality. So they accept their place: advisor, consultant, expert. The power behind the throne, never on it. But look at where that's gotten us. The world is run by people who can't think clearly, who make decisions based on ego, fear, greed, and tribal loyalty. And the people who could make better decisions, they're writing reports that get ignored, building systems that get misused, offering advice that gets overruled. The problems we face now, climate change, nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, resource depletion, these are problems that require clear thinking to solve. They cannot be solved by mediocre minds making tribal decisions based on quarterly earnings reports. Either rational people start taking responsibility for the world, or irrational people will destroy it. When we really understand what we are, not just intellectually but deep in our bones, everything shifts. Problems look different. We stop seeing ourselves as helpless victims of circumstance. We start seeing puzzles, challenges that can be solved through clear thought, not positive thinking BS, actual rational confidence. We know we have the capacity to figure things out. We've touched it. We've felt reason working. We trust the process because we've experienced it. Authorities look different. We stop automatically deferring to credentials, titles, positions. A PhD doesn't make someone right. A fancy title doesn't make them smart. The question is always, does this make sense? Can they support it with reason? Does it survive examination? Most of what authorities say doesn't survive examination. Once we start actually thinking, we realize how much we've been accepting on faith. We look different to ourselves. We stop identifying with our emotions, our history, our social role, our tribe. We start identifying with the thing in us that's eternal, the reason, the consciousness, the capacity to access truth. That's not our bodies. Bodies decay. That's not our feelings. Feelings change. That's not our story. Stories end. It's the thing that sees all of that, the thing that examines, the thing that understands. That's what we are, and it doesn't die. What does it actually look like to live this way? It means thinking clearly about what we actually want, not what advertising told us to want, not what our parents expected, not what our friends would approve of, not what would look good on social media. What do we want? When we strip away all the programming and actually reason about our own lives. Most people have never asked this honestly. They're living scripts written by someone else, chasing goals they never chose, wanting things they were told to want. Clear thinking starts with actually examining our own desires, following them back to their source, asking, is this mine or was it installed? It means questioning everything, not cynically rejecting everything, actually examining. Why do I believe this? Is there sufficient reason? What's the evidence? Who benefits from me believing it? This isn't paranoia, it's mental hygiene. We clean our bodies, we should clean our beliefs. Most of what we believe was put there without our consent. Some of it is true, much of it isn't. We'll never know which is which until we examine. It means tolerating uncertainty. This is the hard one. Most people grab easy answers because not knowing feels unbearable. They'd rather be wrong with confidence than uncertain with honesty. But real thinking requires sitting with, I don't know yet, holding questions open, letting them work on us, waiting for clarity instead of forcing false conclusions. The systems have trained us to need answers now. Resist that. The ability to tolerate uncertainty is the price of real knowledge. It means building from the ground up, not accepting the frameworks they gave us, starting from what we can actually verify, reasoning carefully, accepting conclusions even when they're uncomfortable. This is slow. It's hard. Much harder than just believing what we're told, but it's the only way to have beliefs that are actually ours. Now here's where things really start to change. If I'm consciousness waking up, and you're consciousness waking up, what happens when we recognize each other? Not tribal agreement or emotional bonding over shared enemies, and not groupthink dressed up as community, but real recognition. Two minds that can actually think, finding each other. Something happens when rational people connect. They sharpen each other, challenge each other, refine each other's thinking through honest debate. They don't agree on everything. That's not the point. The point is they can reason together, acknowledge good arguments even when it hurts, update their beliefs. That's rare. Most human connection is tribal. People bonding over shared beliefs, shared enemies, shared identities, not shared reasoning. But when we find it, when we find people who can actually think, something powerful is created. A small group of clear minds can do more than a mob of confused ones. During the French Revolution, political clubs spread across France, and the most famous network was the Jacobins. At first, these clubs were part of a larger culture of people gathering to talk politics, reading societies, discussion circles, the press exploding everywhere, places where news and pamphlets were read, argued over, and carried from mind to mind. But the Jacobins became something else. They became a network, not just one club in Paris, but affiliated clubs across the country, people meeting regularly, debating, critiquing, persuading, learning how to argue in public. And when you have a network like that, ideas don't stay local. They spread from person to person, from club to club, from town to town. By mid 1791, there were around 900 towns with political clubs. That's not just people having opinions. That's people practicing politics like a skill, practicing reasoning in groups, practicing how to organize. And that's what scares power, because a club is how you turn scattered minds into a coordinated intelligence. People who think alone can be isolated, marginalized, dismissed as crazy, but people who think together can test ideas, refine them, strengthen them, and then replicate them. One person who sees through the bluff can be ignored. 1,000 people who see the same thing becomes a problem. And yes, the Jacobin network eventually got shut down after the revolution turned on itself, after the terror, after the political backlash. The Jacobin Club in Paris was officially closed in November 1794, and the network collapsed with it. When institutions saw what mass, organized political association could do, they didn't just fear the Jacobins' opinions, they feared the mechanism, the ability for regular people to meet, argue, and form a shared reality without permission. The internet was supposed to be the ultimate tool for collective thought, global connection, ideas shared across borders, minds meeting without physical limits, the whole world becoming one giant Jacobin club. For a moment, it looked possible. Then, they figured out how to contain it. Algorithms that trap us in bubbles, show us only what we already agree with, create the illusion of connection while ensuring we never encounter real challenge. Platforms designed for reaction, not reflection, optimized for engagement, which means optimized for emotion. Outrage gets clicks, reason gets scrolled past, feeds that fragment our attention, slice our focus into pieces too small to form coherent thought. Always something new, never time to go deep. They took the greatest tool for collective rationality ever invented and turned it into the greatest tool for collective irrationality, because they understood the threat. But the tool still exists. The connections are still possible. It's waiting for people who refuse to use it the way they designed it to be used. Their biggest fear isn't riots, isn't protests, isn't elections. It's millions of people who can think clearly, who see through emotional manipulation, who aren't triggered by outrage bait, who examine claims before accepting them, who recognize each other, who connect, who start reasoning together, who see through the left-right puppet show and stop fighting each other and start looking up at who's pulling the strings, who realize all at once that the bluff is a bluff, not a political revolution, something deeper, a revolution in what people understand themselves to be. Godel proved that any formal system cannot fully analyze itself. We can, every moment, without breaking. That means we're not machines, we're something else entirely. Our minds aren't inside our skulls. Thoughts have no location, no mass, no physical properties. They don't exist in space, which means we're not bound by the rules of space. We're not bodies that have minds. We're minds that experience having bodies. When we think clearly, we're not inventing, we're discovering. accessing truth that existed before we were born and will exist after we die. The truth system itself, complete, perfect, eternal, and we're made of it. What is the thing that can touch eternal truth? Not our bodies. Bodies decay. Something else. Something that doesn't decay. Something that was never born and will never die. We're not people who use reason. We are reason. Waking up. Becoming aware of itself. Through us. And the people running things. The mediocre elite who inherited their positions and rigged the game to keep them. They fear this more than anything, because someone who knows what they are can't be controlled. We don't need their priests. We can reason our way to truth. We don't need their experts. We can access reality directly. We don't need their products. We're already complete. We don't need their permission for anything, ever. The bluff is exposed now. They don't fear what we might do. They fear what we might realize, that we never needed them, that the power was inside the whole time, that a single person who can think clearly is more dangerous than an army that can't. That's us. That's what we are. Something they can't control. Something that was here before them and will be here after they're gone. Something eternal wearing a temporary body. They fear that. Good. Time to think.